I think good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Ganesh Natarajan and Dr. Ganesh Natarajan. I will say I saw him Ganesh, but he's a doctor. So it's good thing, always good things start by praying to Lord Ganesha. So we are today going to discuss a very, very good topic, which of course Ganesh would elaborate later on. Just to give a quick introduction, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan is a founder and chairman of 5F World, which is a platform for global consulting and investing in digital skills and digital transformation. He is also the chairman of Honeywell Automation in India. All of you know this is a big multinational company, and Lighthouse Communities Foundation. And he is also a central board member of State Bank of India, Global Talent Track, and AVPN Singapore. He has received a lot of awards. So let me mention a few awards. He has received the Distinguished Alumnus Award of NITI and IIT Mumbai. Two of the case studies on his work have been written and taught at Harvard Business School. Of course, I know him in his capacity as a past chair of Maharashtra State Council. That's why I had the liberty of asking him to come and speak on this topic. Just to brief the members, this year we took up a topic, accelerating growth of Maharashtra, with focus on innovation. I think we already spoke about innovation with Dr. Naushad Forbes. Then focus on, of course, growth and sustainability, which we spoke with Mr. Mukundan. And technology, we had a session with Mr. Ashank Desai, the master founder. And we firmly believe that Maharashtra, of course, is still the leading state in terms of contributing close to 16 to 17% of GDP of India. And Maharashtra, by virtue of having many companies, head office in Mumbai, there is a lot of FDI, maximum FDI comes in Maharashtra. But the growth rate of Maharashtra, as we all know, is not as high as it was in the past. So this year we said that we would focus on how we can bring back the growth in terms of percentage. Maharashtra became the leading state in terms of growth. And at the same time, we wanted to keep a balance on sustainability. All of us know that we all managed to survive COVID, mainly because of the technology. I think now we are on Zooms, and I think for almost 2 years, even CII was functioning with Teams meetings, Zooms, and WebEx, and so on. And we said, okay, that is a good part of it. So we thought to have a dialogue with busy people like Mr. Ganesh, who is hopping from one place to another. This is a very good occasion we can use. Now also he is traveling to his office in car. Of course, we will start the conversation irrespective of this. So Ganesh, just to start our conversation, we have members from Maharashtra, close to around 300 members from various disciplines. So just to start this thing, what is your vision or dream for digitalization for India and of course the globe, since you do a lot of work globally also? So we can start with that, Ganesh.
Sure, thanks, Sriram, and a pleasure to be here. I mean, I have very fond memories of my tenure in CII Maharashtra, and then of course Western Region and National Council. And to answer your question, Sriram, I think if any of you read the Economic Times a couple of days back, our very, very capable minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnaw, he was talking about the future of digital India. And clearly, there are multiple opportunities emerging. One, of course, is, the super success story of India is what my friend Nandan Nilekani kind of pioneered. Initially, as you know, it was what they call the JAM Trinity, which is Chandhan, Aadhaar, and Mobility, which led to UPI. And today, sitting on the board of State Bank of India, it's amazing to see that UPI is growing faster than almost all private payment networks. So initially it was, as you know, Paytm and a few others, but that's completely changing in favor of UPI. So that is just anecdotal. And what Ashwini was saying the other day is that what we will end up seeing is a whole bunch of digital platforms. And when I say digital platforms, UPI itself is a digital platform, but you will see many more of that, primarily because you will find that whether it's in SMEs, which CII should be very interested in, agriculture, education, skills, it will be digital platforms which enables multiple people to interact. I think that will be the future of technology. So Digital India, to answer your question, Sriram, absolutely alive and kicking, and we see great potential going forward.
And what do you think will be the standing of India in the world? Of course, I know that because of population, we have a lot of users and stuff. But in terms of, let's say, passing on a product from India to the globe, which product do you think will go on to the world from your perspective?
See, I think it'll be a lot of digital capabilities. I mean, UPI, as you know, it was actually co-created by a bunch of folks in NASCOM and iSpirit, etc. And like that, I mean, given the depth and width of Indian talent that really comes into the technology sector, and the fact that, most of the global competence centers in India are also providing most of the products for the global so Oracle and SAP, etc. I think there's a huge opportunity. And what is important to remember is, I mean, if you look at, I mean, all of you know that Prime Minister Modi had targeted that by 2024, India would be a 5 trillion GDP economy. But of course, thanks to COVID, that's got delayed. So my point is that irrespective of whether we touch that 5 trillion GDP by 2027 or 2028, or if you're lucky, maybe earlier, what is definite is that the digital India will be $1 trillion. And that's going to happen not because of the IT sector. I mean, the IT sector today is about 225 billion. Will probably grow to 350, 400. The 600 million is going to come through unique products, unique platforms like UPI that will not only enable India to be very successful in terms of last mile connectivity and the national optic fiber network, etc. But more important, I think it'll create a whole bunch of entrepreneurs who have been schooled in digital India, who have built digital solutions, and these people will take these solutions and make them global. So I'm even more excited about the opportunities for digital consulting, digital products, digital platforms to be exported out of India than I was, 30 years back when we started off our journey in the technology services industry. So to answer your question, Sriram, absolutely. And I'm sure many of your kids and grandkids are really looking at this as a big opportunity. And most of the work we do in 5F World, for instance, we've invested in 11 companies which are all focused on building platforms for digital India. We're also finding that a bunch of startups are now coming up, which will just make that happen. So I think it's a big global opportunity, and India will clearly has the opportunity to be in pole position on that opportunity.
That's fantastic, because we talk about manufacturing contributing 25% of India's GDP. Now I understand $1 trillion is roughly 20%. It's a wow opportunity. I think how I wish. Okay, I'm not old, but how I wish I was younger by 30 years. So
not only that, Sriram, just to add to that, I mean, every sector. I mean, if you look, obviously, financial services has been completely transformed. I mean, today, if you look at banking, I mean, the growth of our YONO app and State Bank of India is much faster than anything we'd imagined. And in fact, our previous chairman, Rajneesh Kumar, was actually quoted as saying that, look, if we just spun out YONO as a digital app, that itself would be valued at $60 billion. So it's actually amazing. And you look at Industry 4.0 for manufacturing, which is clearly, I mean, people like, I've been on the Smart Manufacturing Council now, CII, for the last 3 years. And if you look at what people like Siemens are doing, both in India and abroad, digital twinning and so many opportunities. And of course, Digi Health, as we call it nowadays, and the Digi Health platform of government is really going places. So across the sector, you look at all the traditional areas. That's why I mentioned earlier, education and skills and manufacturing and healthcare and financial services and anything else, agriculture, a big agri-tech movement coming through. You'll find that, not only digital India or digital solutions by themselves, but digital enablement of virtually every sector of the economy, that's going to become mainstream. And we're really very, very excited about that.
I think, Ganesh, I don't know whether it's a coincidence, since you talked about digital. I think we have a magazine from our company, which comes every, I think it's once in a year, now it's off. So this is talking only about digital enlightenment and what's driving the process industry. Yeah? And basically, we have around 30-40 pages focused only on digitalization. So I think probably it's by chance or choice, I don't know. We have a corporate thing at Anderson also we are talking about this. Now coming back, I think since we have a mix of audience, generally we have a confusion, I think, between digitalization is there, and then of course we talk about digital transformation journey and so on. Just for us to understand, can we just elaborate what is from your, I know it's a very easy question for you, but there are many people like me who are not so much thorough with these three terms. Yeah.
No, digitization is pretty much, I mean, if you convert anything to zeros and ones, the binary digits, it becomes digitization. And a lot of people confuse digitization with digitalization. You're absolutely right. Digitalization is what, when processes go digital, for instance, if you look at retail today, I mean, probably the most significant example is entertainment. I mean, the minute you've got Amazon Prime and Sony and of course, Netflix and everything else, what you've really done is digitalized entertainment in the sense that you've made it possible to start, stop at your choice. You don't have to sit in a theater and, wait for a boring stuff to end. And I think that's just one trend. I mean, if you have time in the end, I'll talk to a little bit about metaverse. If you look at entities like metaverse coming in, you can almost simulate your entire life on a different platform. So that is digitalization, where you're taking digital technologies and making them work for completely re-engineering or digital re-architecting of digital processes. And that's going to be very important. So which kind of brings you to the subject of digital transformation. Sadly, it's been very cliched because for the last 5 years, people have been talking about digital transformation. And one area of work that we do a lot of in 5F world is both research and consulting in what we call digital success. Now, why am I differentiating digital transformation and digital success? Because everybody says that we are doing digital transformation. But the sad reality is that if you look at companies who have embarked on digital transformation maybe 5, 6, 10 years ago, and right from the time cloud computing started happening, which was almost 10 years back, and all through this current journey of new technologies, etc., we're finding that hardly 18% of the companies, not just in India, but overseas, actually deliver on the kind of results that was promised because of digital. And our research has shown, and in fact, I'm just finishing tomorrow in Mumbai, a significant digital strategy project for one of the largest pharma companies in the country. And there again, when we did the diagnostic, we found that, look, they've invested in every technology possible. So they have kind of digitized every opportunity. But the digitalization has not happened because they haven't really looked at their manufacturing processes and their business processes and say that, look, how does the process really get transformed by the digital touch points, which is extremely critical. We can even come back to that later. Apart from that, we find that digital success will happen A, with technology, B, with business and manufacturing process. And then you have to look at other things. You have to look at what we call journeys, like in State Bank or even in Honeywell, which I chair. I mean, we're looking at customer journeys all the time. And customer journeys are changing so fast depending on the demographics. I mean, the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, depending on access to technology, which of course in India is very variable across metros and tier 2 cities and of course the villages. And the customer journeys are also changing based on the preferences of the consumer. So you have to really plan for every customer journey. Similarly, employees. I mean, today, I'm sure all of you know that people are just not listening to regular. I mean, one of the reasons I like Zoom or let's say this 1 hour chat is, I mean, if I came in and did a 1-day workshop, which I've done many of those for CII, I promise you, in spite of the fact that I do so much of this, there'll be people who will be looking at their WhatsApp and will not concentrate, etc., etc. The big advantage today is that digital technology is enabling you to even transform the learning journey. A lot of the work we do in Global Talent Track, which is our skills company, is just to ensure that, look, even the learning journey or the way they consume skills is completely changed based on the individual preference of the person. So you can adapt digital to these journeys. That's the third part. The fourth, of course, is the big thing, which is the concept of data and analytics. I mean, most companies think that they've got analytics kind of mastered, but we're still doing very much of what I call postmortem analytics. So it's really what we call descriptive analytics, which will tell you exactly what your inventory was, how you went wrong, etc., etc. But what is really valuable is what we call predictive and prescriptive analytics. If you can predict at what stage your supply chain will fail, if you can prescribe saying that, look, this is the alternative route that you can adopt to have maybe a 99% supply chain efficiency, that is the real analytics. A lot of people are now getting used to making real investments in analytics. Last but not the least is culture. I mean, I was consulting 5 years back with a very large organization in financial services, and this CEO was just not happy with the results he was getting. And they had everything right. They had brilliant people in technology, analytics, etc. But they forgot that, look, it is ultimately the 24/7 culture that digital demands is not what many, and they had an average age of 47, 48 in that organization. And people were not into that culture. I mean, to use a cliche, there are many people who are digital immigrants, even like me, okay, who didn't really grow up with digital technology. There are also many people who are digital natives, like the Gen Zs of today. But you cannot design systems for digital natives. You have to remember that there are people who have to come struggling to the party. And that's where culture and skills become important. So just to summarize, true digital transformation, or what I call digital success, is choosing appropriate technology, ensuring that your processes are adapted. I mean, there are jargons like robotic process automation going around, and are totally adapted to that. And then, of course, these three things: planning your customer, supply chain, employee journey, planning exactly how you will fit data and analytics into it, and finally, culture and skills. If you do all these properly, and we're now developing methodologies to make that happen, then the likelihood of success is much better than just if you did, as you said, digitalization without thinking about the realities and the net outcomes.
I think you have hit the nail on the head. Basically, just to Indian industry, I think you spoke about one of your clients in brief. It'd be very good if you can share some more success story of people who are succeeded with digital. I know we have many examples. You can mention the client's name, or it'll be interesting. What was it before, or what is it later? Because I remember at least our organization, we could manage COVID because of the leap in faith. I think digital technology we did 3 years back. Otherwise, frankly, we would have lost quite a lot of sales. Of course, I would like you to speak about it, some success stories which you have anchored or you have heard about it, so that people can get inspired.
Yeah. One of the most significant success stories is Siemens itself. I mean, you talk to Sunil Mathur, who actually has chaired the Smart Manufacturing Council of CII for quite some time. Now, if you look at Siemens, I mean, they do what is called digital twinning. In the good old days, if you remember, if you had to start a new product line, you had to almost simulate everything on the shop floor. Today, a digital twin can simulate the entire process, look at what could be the pitfalls. So you're completely ready with a simulated process, even before you actually start building the shop floor assembly line or production line for that. So that's one clear example. In my own experience in running Zensar for 15 years, I mean, when we started doing digital, I mean, companies like John Lewis Partnership, which is probably the biggest retail brand in the UK, or Cisco for that matter, I mean, Toys R Us, of course, today that's not a brand anymore, it got sold. But I mean, these guys actually put digital platforms in place. And you all know, I mean, retail is one area which has been benefited more than anything else by digital. And it's not just if you're an Amazon user or buying it from Flipkart, but even traditional retail, where you're looking at I mean, a woman who wants to buy a dress, I mean, need not go into a shop anymore. I mean, her size is available. She can actually get into simulating herself wearing 50 different dresses at the same time. So it kind of increases the pleasure of a shopping experience and doesn't get her to waste time going to the store and trying on stuff, etc., etc. So my own feeling is that, I mean, if I look at my own background in the last 10 years, I think the biggest beneficiaries of digital have been, of course, e-commerce, followed by retail, and followed by, I would say, manufacturing and pharmaceuticals. And these are big initiatives. Healthcare has still been, unfortunately, it's been a bit of a laggard, especially in India. But now it's kind of coming to the party. And again, unfortunately, in India, education has been a laggard because, I mean, we all got very hyped up by the edtechs. But the collapse of many edtechs has shown us that, look, education still tends to be very much a guru-shishya approach in this country. And, e-learning course completion rates are less than 8%. So clearly it shows that, look, digital has not been absorbed there. And that's the opportunity. So I think if we want every Indian to benefit from digital technology, we have to see what are those critical touch points to make it happen. So that's the answer, Sriram. I mean, I can give you case after case, but even in this pharma company that we're finishing this exercise for, I mean, we are now looking at 4 of their plants and saying how you can do end-to-end Industry 4.0 automation using technologies from companies like Honeywell. Then we're looking at the whole analytics piece and say that, look, I mean, for instance, if you look at primary distribution and secondary distribution, I mean, you really can't predict how much stockists will order from you. So your production is almost always guesswork. But now we're kind of integrating the entire demand chain to make sure that digital will almost guide your production plan going forward. So it's actually very exciting to see, and again, recruiting, because this is a large company. So even recruiting now, we're finding that with digital, they can speed up their recruiting process. I mean, actually look at somebody's digital footprint and make a good assessment of whether this person would be a fit for the role and for the organization. And it's eliminating so much of potential errors and potential delays in the decision-making process. So I think that's the big benefit we see nowadays of using digital in virtually every sector.
I think, Ganesh, you brought upon a very, very good topic. which is also, I would say, okay, we said we use digital technology in recruitment. But I think just for argument's sake, generally, of course, I agree with you in terms of screening a person. It will always be helpful. But generally, when you meet a person, I think this is a thought process. Generally, when you meet a person in person, that warmth and feeling which you have, I think that cannot replace digital recruitment. This is my view. I don't know how you look at it.
You're absolutely right, Sriram. And in fact, I would hate to say that, look, you can complete your entire process. I mean, a lot of people who recruited on Zoom and made offers have not really been very happy with that. But I'm really talking more about the shortlisting.
Okay, I think fine.
If you get 5,000 applications for a particular job, you don't want to end up having a manual sifting through. So what artificial intelligence can actually do for you is make sure that, because the AI will go through, like, for instance, I'll give an example and come back to the answer. I remember the folks in IBM Watson about 6 years ago in Bangalore. They invited me to come and visit them and discuss with their Watson. Watson is nothing but their big AI engine that they designed, which is now no longer there. But I mean, that time it was very, very hot. So I remember going there, and it's like the first thing I remembered was that, look, I mean, 3 or 4 people who are like working on their computers, which unfortunately happens too often nowadays. And I thought they weren't paying attention to me. But interestingly, I mean, after the first 7-8 minutes, the conversation got very, very interesting. Okay, I mean, the questions that were being asked and everything that was going on was absolutely amazing. So at the end of the half an hour interaction, I actually asked my host, saying, this was my experience. I mean, is there something unique about it? He says, no, this is exactly what you should be experiencing. Because he says, before you came in, we just put Ganesh Natarajan into IBM Watson. And it told us everything about you, because I'm a very social media person. So it went into LinkedIn, went into Facebook, went into Insta. And it actually, in fact, he showed it to me. It was almost like even my mother wouldn't know me better than that this AI had done. Okay. And it actually told them that, look, Ganesh is a guy who will get bored within 7 minutes. So you better make sure that after you do your initial warm-up, you ask very interesting questions. Only then it will kind of motivate him. And then as I was answering, they were feeding it back to Watson. And Watson, those 4 guys sitting on computers were being prompted by Watson, now ask him this follow-up question. So the point I'm making is, see, even today, whether we like it or not, when we meet a person face-to-face and somebody's told you, okay, please interview this person, typically, okay, what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats? Now we do a very uninformed interview. Whereas if you had all this data and a prompt from digital saying that, look, this is where you have to probe, this is where we think there's a problem with this guy. I mean, imagine how much more effective your recruitment decisions would be. So by all means, Sriram, to your point, I'm also a great believer that the final interview has to be face-to-face. But let's use that interview not for asking the same, kind of primitive questions, but really asking very incisive questions to make sure that the person is A, comfortable, and B, that you really know you're getting the right fit for your organization.
And absolutely right. I think I wanted to make you not feel bored. That's why I asked this question.
That's smart.
I don't want to get bored. I don't have a Watson, of course, helping me. But just getting into I think the previous one you brought about companies generally don't go beyond the concept of initial analytics, predictive and prescriptive analytics. I think this is what you spoke about.
Right.
Can you talk more so that of course nowadays we have I would just remember only one thing from my this thing. If we didn't have this digitalization, I think the vaccines were all developed. I think most of the vaccines within 6 months. That means I understand a lot of prototypes and simulations which would have taken 8-10 years were crashed into 3 to 6 months. Of course, the effectiveness got improved later on. So I'm sure without this simulation techniques and other things, a lot of work must have been done in the background. That's the reason why the world could survive. So
absolutely, I think if you look at Bharat Biotech, and even yesterday I was having a chat with Adar Punawala at the CII dinner. So you're right, absolutely. I mean, people all think, oh, what is so great about Serum Institute? They just took something from UK and brought it here. Not really, because actually they adapted a lot of the production processes, etc., for the Indian market. And I think that's the strength. And to answer your question, I mean, I'll give you another example. I mean, I'm on the board of a company in Los Angeles, in California, and we do a lot of work for some of the Hollywood studios. And the kind of analytics work that's going on there is absolutely amazing. I mean, because initially, analytics was used primarily to say, okay, fine. I mean, you had a Tom Hanks movie, how did it do, etc., etc. But now they're using predictive analytics to say that, look, if a movie goes on this pattern and this is the kind of hero, heroine, if you will, what is the likelihood of success in which market? That is predictive. And also prescriptive, saying that, look, if you're going to get a superstar for the movie, what do we prescribe? Who should be the heroine for that? How does the chemistry work in terms of projecting it to the audience? And I'm absolutely amazed. Giving you one more example, in fact, the National Basketball Association, which most of you would have heard of, which is probably it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise for managing basketball around the world, and particularly in the US. And there's a guy called, I forget his name, I think his second name is Bhagwantulu. He's from Andhra. He's a CTO, Chief Technology Officer of that. And he actually walked me around in New York just 3 months ago when I went to the NBA studios. And you imagine the kind of technology they're working on. I mean, all of you have seen these basketball games where in America, there's a 7-foot guy charging down the pitch. And there are 3 people kind of blocking him, making sure he doesn't shoot. They're working on neural networks and artificial intelligence, where as the 7-foot guy is charging down the pitch, his brain will be prompted that, look, if you turn left instead of right, the chances of success of shooting the basket are better. Now, you could almost say that, look, we are converting human beings into humanoids or robots. But so I was asking him, well, is it ethical to use technology like this? He says, no, we may never use it, but if we want, we can do it. So we can actually now prescribe where to go and improve the winning outcome of, let's say, the Los Angeles Lakers by 20%. So I'm just saying the potential is there for complete transformation. I mean, people talk about ethical AI nowadays. It's a big deal thing. And ethical AIs are all about making sure that you don't use technology to almost completely make life autonomous and override the role of the human being, but use more of digital in more of an assistive or an augmentative manner. And that is probably the logical way that people will think of. So I think there is a blend of machine capabilities and human intelligence that we have to use when we design digital systems for the future.
I think just reminds me that we have a final coming up, football. And probably I think both France and Argentina must be using this. Which they heard.
Argentina has a robot called Lionel Messi. So they will win 3-1 because of Messi, not because of artificial intelligence.
So you see, Natarajan has already done some work on AI. Analytics.
It's either 2-1 or 3-1. That's all. That's the only difference.
Okay. I also hope it stays that way. Now, coming to our topic, because you get bored and sound, that's why I try to come up with something. Now, all of us know, okay, all this we do to deliver more value for our customers. Now, I think we are a country which is evolving. And this is an opportunity, like you said, what all tremendous opportunities which we have. It's I think mind-boggling. You can say $1 trillion economy. I cannot imagine. Now, what is the basic change we need to do to deliver more value for customers? Of course, you spoke about it indirectly when you said, okay, about the culture part. I think that's I think in my opinion, I think that's it starts there. And of course, leadership and so on. But I would like to hear from you. What is the change we need to do to deliver more value from customers, specifically with respect to digitalization?
Yeah. So, I mean, let me first talk about India itself, because one of the reasons why we have not been very successful in technology. I mean, just to give you an example, the reason why I had to go through these hoops was, I mean, I was just registering a sale lead in the government office here. I had an appointment for 12:20. So I thought, even if it takes 1 hour, I'll be back in my office at 2 o'clock. I mean, the server was slow. They couldn't process the data. They couldn't match my thumb impression with some other thumb impression somewhere. I mean, they finished it finally at 3:10. Can you believe it? Imagine wasting 4 hours of your life sitting in a very, very dirty government department and doing this. So this is the problem we have, that look, we have just not optimized on technology. I mean, all of you must be, I mean, Prime Minister, every Independence Day speech talks about either BharatNet or what is now called NOFIN, National Optical Fiber Network. See, the sad reality is that while Digital India has kind of, I mean, obviously people like in Bombay and Pune, I mean, I can do pretty much any call. Yesterday, I was on a board call right from leaving Nariman Point to reaching my house in Kalyani Nagar. And the line didn't drop even once. And I was on a video call. I mean, it was unimaginable even 2 years back. So clearly, the coming of 5G and everything else is going to change all that. But what we mustn't forget is National Optic Fiber Network is supposed to take optical fiber down to the last village. Today, if you look at the 250,000 gram panchayats and 600,000 plus villages, many of the villages don't have even a modicum of internet. So you need 10 Mbps bandwidth at every corner of this country. Now, Kerala claims they've done it, for instance. Maharashtra certainly has not. Many of the smaller states have yet to do that. So I think that is one imperative, because unless you have uniformity of technology, and of course, Mukesh Bhai has been talking about 5G will transform everything, but you got to see that happen. So one is that infrastructure. The second is, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the social infrastructure, that people have to be aligned to the changes that are happening in the world. And because you will find, especially if you're in a B2C kind of manufacturing environment, that your customer is much more savvy, is much more comfortable with technology than many of the people working in your organization. I remember, Sriram, in the early days when I was working in NIIT, we used to do these seminars. And we used to say that, look, the world will constantly struggle with what we call fifth generation technology, third generation processes, and first generation people. Because that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where it kind of fits. So to answer your question, I think it's extremely important. I mean, I know I'm overemphasizing the culture and skills piece, but we've got to ensure that people are ready, whether it is the last mile villager in the most rural part of Maharashtra. I mean, they have to really see the benefits of using technology, and then it'll change. And just to give you a parallel, I mean, even if you look at the world of digital, it's progressed from a pure cost model, which is how the Facebooks and the Googles really started, because everything became free, to an experience model, which is where Sony and Apple and of course Netflix and Amazon Prime came in, and towards what I call the platform model. So the platform model is what makes an Uber, or my friend Bhavesh Agarwal, who runs Ola. And I mean, if you look at people like Bhavesh, they're fanatical about platforms, because they know that asset ownership is no longer the reason for success. Is the ability to kind of address information asymmetry and make information flow very quickly. That's what made Uber what it is, or an Airbnb, or today an Ola Oyo Rooms, or Ola. So I think that is what we have to understand. That we have to be adept at creating information flows, and then everything else kind of follows between the customer and you, and between your supply chain partner and you, and of course between the supplier and you. That is when the homogeneity of platforms will happen. Sorry, I went a bit technical, but I'm just saying that just think about it as the great leveling force to make corporates, agriculture, and the whole country, be digitally included. That's extremely important.
I think you are giving you have hit the nail on the head. But I also have a different view. Most of these digital platform companies you talk about, they seem to be valued. They are all high valued, but they don't seem to be making money. They're burning cash. So whereas a brick and mortar company, we see the money. That is my view. I may be wrong.
No, you're right and wrong. You're wrong in the sense that if I still remember in 2001 or 2002, when somebody asked Jeff Bezos of Amazon, saying that, look, when will you guys ever make money? He said, look, I mean, there's no need for me to make money, because I am a complete market pioneer. And anytime I want to make money, within 6 months, I can shut off all my new investments and I'll make money. And if you look at Amazon, of course, there's a classic story of, I keep saying that you talked about innovation earlier. So I was in fact chatting with Naushad once on innovation. And I said, look, the only model of innovation I respect is what I call ambidextrous innovation, where, you keep incremental innovation as your watchword, but keep looking for disruptive opportunities. And Amazon is probably one company in the world which has had multiple disruptions and completely changed its model. So I'm saying it is absolutely possible. I was talking to Bhavesh Agarwal recently. I was interviewing him for something, same thing, Ola, for instance. And he said the same thing. Look, he said, thanks to the success of Ola, and okay, you can argue that the Ola scooter is not doing well and all that stuff, but he says we are betting our last mile on EVs, and we will kind of franchise. And he says they are already profitable, and they can continue to be profitable. So, but you're right. I mean, I won't name the companies, but I mean, as you know, one of the largest edtechs, and of course, one of the largest payment players, and retail. I mean, when people get overvalued and then they kind of list it at that valuation, then you find that the retail investor gets chewed, because I mean, it's going to take 3 to 4 years for them to recover that value. So, I mean, I'm also like you, Sriram, a believer in the old maxim, that at the end of the day, revenue is reality and profit is sanity. Okay, but if you in this model, we may have to change the sanity definition a little bit. That maybe there's a delayed sanity in saying that, look, let me get those eyeballs and let me just grow the hell out of the business and we'll make money. But if you don't have a path to profitability, then you're headed for disaster. And I think, everybody who's just going out there and advertising and, taking up every franchise and sponsoring every team in the world has to think about, look, boss, at some stage, your investor is going to say, where is the money? And that's important.
Thank you. I think I come to the last part of my question. Of course, then we'll take questions from the audiences so that you feel more at home apart from me. Now, basically, you gave a message for what the government of India should deliver. I think, of course, very rightly you said. Now, we have today, as you said, there is a mix of first generation to, I think, this thing. There is a mix of people. Now, youth, of course, they are more digital savvy. Okay. And we have now a lot of startups, as you said, coming up in the, I think, especially in the digital sphere. So what is your message for brick and mortar companies? I think in CII, we have majority of the companies. We have the technology companies, majority of brick and mortar companies. What is your message for companies which are brick and mortar?
No, I think you definitely have to look at digital, because digital not necessarily go whole hog. I'm not saying be a Siemens and completely automate your shop floors and manufacturing execution systems, etc. But look at digital in the sense that what makes your operations more efficient, what makes your customer outreach more effective, and there are some simple answers to this that you can find. So once you define your business need, that look, there's a large incumbent who's kind of eating your lunch because he or she has more investments in technology, but with a very judicious or an appropriate mix of technologies, you can make it happen. So my advice to answer your question, Sriram, is that look, everybody should look at digital. Don't go whole hog and don't go get fooled by some consultant or vendor to say that, look, we'll completely transform everything. But if you do it incrementally, as I said earlier on innovation, and then look at some opportunities where you can suddenly grab market share and be very disruptive, I think that combination is what you should be looking at. But do not ignore digital, because that is the way the world will go.
Okay. Thank you. I think we are, in fact, at the CII Maharashtra state level, we have formed a cluster at the MSME level, which one of the focus on digitalization. And we are exactly taking this approach and don't do digitalization for the sake of doing. So, of course, once it is formally launched, we started the process. We'll come to you. Now, we are talking about government of India's, of course, we talked about all this Jan Dhan Aadhaar, all these things. The delivery to the last mile, I think today has become very, very efficient because of the digitalization. I think we cannot deny that. But still, there is a gap in terms of, let's say, the awareness. I think we have, unfortunately, in India, we have almost 50 to 60% of the population. This is the bottom of the pyramid. Now, how do you think we can harness digitalized technology to improve their standard of living? I think this is something which I thought, I know you're doing this Lighthouse projects and all. We didn't talk about it. So I want you to talk about what we can do for this. Yeah.
No, actually, you're right. And I think digital is as important in the social sector as it is in any other sector of the economy. And in fact, even you mentioned the Lighthouse project. And that's for people who are not aware of. I mean, this is something where we are doing it north, south, east, west. I mean, we have saturated Pune. We are now setting up in a place like Kalyan. This is nothing but enabling youth from the slums, to also feel included. So we use a lot of technology there. So to give you an example, somebody wants to consider working in a big hospital that he sees every day in front of his slum. But the confidence is not there. The person believes that, look, no, I'm just the slum guy and I can't go in and work with all those fancy doctors with stethoscopes, etc. So when he comes to a Lighthouse, what we do is we give him a virtual reality headset and say, just watch it for 20 minutes. So he actually watches somebody very similar to him sitting in the operating theater, taking the pulse of the patient, assisting the doctor, and he thinks, oh my God, wo kar sakti hai, to main bhi kar sakta hu. So I think the ability to tell the story through visual and graphics, rather than just somebody telling the guy and he may or may not believe, is what makes a difference. And we're now using digital in every part of the value chain. So I think that is the reality that, we have to, I mean, one of my colleagues in the past used to say that, we have to use commonly available technology uncommonly well. Extremely important. You throw technology at a problem, it'll never get solved. But you understand what that solution is all about, then the technology will kind of, give itself up for you and make that happen. So I think that's what I would think that we need to do. And you talked about, the benefit to the last mile. I mean, you look at the direct benefit transfers that was enabled by Aadhaar and mobile phones. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. You look at the election process. I'm sure many of you watched the Senate elections. One Senate seat in America took almost 12 days for them to declare the results. I mean, it's absolutely pathetic, man. And here, like, by end of the day, Prannoy Roy is telling you who's going to win. I mean, that's the beauty of India, and we kind of sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit for that. So DBT and now what is called the account aggregator, and which will enable the SMEs to participate in the whole growth of the economy. All this is going to, implemented properly, will change the face of India.
I think wonderfully said. Commonly available technology to use uncommonly. Now, we had some questions from people attending. Now, there is a question from Mr. Sandeep Tulapurkar. Sir, you spoke about the need of digitalization of education in India. If we see example of EduTech in China, it thrived on intense competition. In case of India, there is the reach to the, how we can accelerate the reach to the rural India. So that's what he's asking. Interior parts of India.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think I answered it because I said that, look, we have to ensure last mile connectivity. Otherwise, people will get left out. You cannot afford to have 70% of your population completely left out of the digital. So digital inclusion is very important. I mean, I was one of the first people when Prime Minister Modi in his very, very first year as Prime Minister, he announced a national digital literacy mission. And I remember in Pune, we took it up and, we've got almost 110,000 people digitally trained. And just to give you one anecdote, I mean, that's what makes a difference. I remember the member of parliament for Pune, a lady called Vandana Chavan from the NCP. She met me when I was running Zensar about 8 years back and said, look, you guys talk digital literacy, etc. आप शहर में करोगे ठीक है मगर गांव में क्यों नहीं करते? I said, you pointed to me. So she actually took me to a village called Sudumbre, very close to Talegaon in Maharashtra. It's fairly close to Pune. And I did the analysis. There were 3,200 people, almost 650 youth. So I told Vandana that we will invest in putting in 4 computers, a tutor there, and let young people start playing around with digital. We don't want to kind of teach them, but let them learn digital. So we said, fine. I remember 4 months later when Parliament was out of session, then Vandana came and met me and said, let's go find out what's happening. And I remember we going there, and the first thing we saw was 10 youth, as usual, doing nothing, playing in the yard. So we said, "Aap log digital kyun nahi padhte ho?" So the young person said that, look, I mean, we don't get a chance. I said, what do you mean we don't get a chance? If young people don't go to the digital center, who's there? So Vandana and I went there, and we saw these two. One woman must be in her like 70s, and one in her 50s, both avidly using the digital technology. And we asked the old woman in Marathi, I remember Vandana asked her, Tai, what are you using this for? And she said, look, I'll tell you one thing. My son is looking for a match for his daughter. And he says he keeps going to this village and comes back and says that, look, this guy has 15 acres of land. She says, I immediately come to the digital center, check out the Satbara extract and find out whether it's true or not. And we were amazed. And then we asked the other lady, what are you doing with digital? She says, no, my husband goes to Bombay every month. And every month he'll come back and give me a sari and say that, look, this costs 800 rupees. So she said, I immediately go to Flipkart and show him the same sari and said, you should have bought it for 350 rupees. I mean, this is real digital India. I can keep talking about digital twinning, etc. But when you're making the person aware of reality and making her, really be anyway, that's absolutely amazing. The youth will learn by themselves. But getting every citizen across demographic and psychographic strata to that is really, I think that is when, to answer your question, we would have really done digital inclusion and taken it to rural India and to the masses.
Okay, I think I understand the terminology. Don't give a fish to a person. Give me a fishing rod. They will learn themselves.
Exactly.
Okay. That's what I think. I'm very excited. And in fact, I need to tell one experience. We have one lady who came to address one of our sales council meeting, Ms. Mandeep Singh Kaur. So she comes from a village called Tangra. So she has added that. So she is trying to do a reverse migration. So in their village, she is bringing people from city to come and work in the village. And unka thinking thought process is, let's say 100 people work, indirectly they give employment in the village. Some people get for this thing employment for giving food to the people. Somebody gets this one. So there's a thought process going on. I think absolutely right. Last mile connectivity is one thing which is going to help India. The next question is, of course, from Mr.
No, I mean,
Mandar.
before you ask the next question, Sriram, I mean, I'm on the board of Ronnie Screwwala's amazing entity, Swadesh. If you look at what Swadesh does, exactly what you said. In Raigad district, especially during COVID, they brought so many people who were doing nothing in Bombay or really struggling in Bombay and brought them back. I mean, we ended up doing drip irrigation, transformed the schools, and suddenly, and now we're doing the same project as a Honeywell Swadesh joint venture in Nasik. So clearly, you're right. I mean, that is the opportunity to reverse urbanization, decongest our cities, and so many other opportunities and benefits you'll see. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think that's the reason why I said that. But anyway, since we both chatted for a long time, I thought we should give opportunity to the audience. Next is Mr. Mandar Mahajan. His question is, what change will happen when 5G comes? How confident are you about the data, security of the data, as technologies through digital platforms are increasing in India? The recent example, of course, this came in yesterday's paper, AIMS Delhi server is tagged. So what is the long-term solutions in India?
No, two good questions. I mean, first is, I mean, the transformational technologies are quantum computing and 5G. And what are both of these doing? Quantum computing will ensure that your processing speeds are maybe multi-x transformed. So you never have to worry about the problem I face today in the registration. The server is down, server is slow, all that will change. 5G, of course, I mean, it's just phenomenal. Like I mentioned that I came all the way from Bombay to Pune and didn't have a single line drop throughout a board meeting. That's not really 5G. I think we're still working on 4G. But once, let's say, Maharashtra gets complete 5G, then you can pretty much access anything at high speeds from anywhere. So I think that transformation will happen. See, this data security is an important issue. So even today, most of us give our passwords to our drivers and say, go find this or whatever. And we have to be a little careful. We have to change our passwords. We have to make sure that we keep secure. Because for every great technology that's developed, there's one criminal coming up from somewhere. I mean, there's a whole bunch of hackers in various rural parts of India who are just hacking sites like the AIMS example that you mentioned. So people have to be ultra careful. At the same time, I mean, I keep telling people that, look, don't get obsessed with data privacy. I mean, I have no data privacy in the sense that, I mean, obviously, financial data, yes, but I don't care if somebody sends me a random email or a WhatsApp. I mean, it's my choice whether to reply or not. So I'm not that obsessive about my privacy that, some people tend to be. So very early in life, you have to choose, whether you want to be accessible or you want to be a total private. And if you want to be a total private individual in these days of social media, it's going to be extremely difficult because people can always figure who you are if they really want to do it. So I think don't get too obsessed about data privacy. I mean, wherever you need privacy, by all means, use the right security mechanisms. But apart from that, I mean, technology is going to accelerate at a continuing huge pace over the next at least foreseeable future. So let's get prepared for it. That's what I would advise.
I think a wonderful thought process, because I can understand, because you are on 3 medias and they could profile you correctly. You get bored in 7 minutes. And next thing is very relevant. How can digitalization help India achieve the net zero goals? And how can digital technologies help organization be more sustainable? I think you did speak about it, but
that's a very good question. In fact, yesterday when I was talking to Hyderabad about sustainability, I actually gave the example of State Bank, which I'll repeat to you. So we look at sustainability from 4 lenses. Technology has to be sustainable, which means you have to use green data centers that don't have too much of energy consumption. That's one. The second is digital consumers. I mean, today when we have doorstep banking, for instance, I mean, we're trying to avoid people having to unnecessarily go to the bank branch. And then there's, of course, YONO and everything else that we use. So digital customer is extremely important. The third is, of course, digital processes. I mean, every process, that's why you use robotic process automation. So the minute you use RPA, you're using less paper, you're making sure that, you're protecting the planet to whatever extent possible, because everything is getting slowly automated. And finally, the digital ecosystem. So in State Bank, in fact, we are trying to ensure that, even the fintechs who work with us as part of our sandbox, all these guys are, completely into the sustainability. We produce like any other large corporation, a sustainability report every year. And I think that is the way to go. Sustainability, otherwise, Prime Minister Modi has talked about net zero by 2070. I can assure you it's a very, very tough ask, because whether we like it or not, as you know, the world is predicted to go, the global warming will take the temperatures up by 1.5 degrees over the next few decades. And we'll be lucky to make that happen. Thanks to Ukraine and thanks to the other problems. There's the energy crisis in Europe, as you know. So people are going back to fossil fuels. I don't think India will ever get rid of the coal mines in Dhanbad in a hurry. So we'll kind of coexist with fossil fuels, renewables. I'm glad to tell you that we get so many funding proposals for solar energy and wind energy, even today in State Bank. So clearly the momentum is picking up. It's going to take time. So can technology enable us to meet sustainable goals? Absolutely, yes, because technology is what powers many of these new renewable and EVs, etc. And a lot of these EVs are like, if you look at a Tesla car, it's 80% software and 20% hardware. So all these will help in sustainability. So clearly, technology is going to be inevitable as a very important component of the net zero goals, no doubt.
I think Natarajan, just thought process. I think I was in one of our customers' place. Of course, I don't want to name them. Very interestingly, they said they do a product which helps to bring down the carbon footprint. So yesterday, so much carbon footprint reduced. So I saw this meter, and I was just thinking, we have a goal of net zero. I'm just thinking, while can we, because anything when it's measured, we tend to do better. So this is an opportunity. I thought this is there with technology. Now there is one more. I think there is a person is thanked. Since we have some time, you spoke about metaverse, and I would like our people who are attending the conference to understand, and we also learn that Facebook or I don't know, that company is losing a lot of money, and I did get some knowledge from WhatsApp University, but I want to understand from you, because WhatsApp University sometimes is not right.
No, WhatsApp University is dangerous. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because everybody has it's a very unvalidated, unverified kind of opinions. Metaverse is very simple. It's still a little slow. I think it'll take about 3 years to develop, but it's actually rebuilding your entire physical process on the internet. So banks, for instance, there's no reason why somebody cannot on the internet walk into a virtual bank, interact with a teller, have a conversation, decide what they want to do. So robotic advisory, all this will happen through metaverse. I remember, and then in fact, the precursor of metaverse is an entity called Second Life, which came in almost 12 years back. And I remember in Zensar, we actually built our entire campus virtually on Second Life. And very similar to metaverse, people could, I remember one day a person said that, look what's happening on metaverse. And there was a very bright person dressed as a wolf. So we don't know who he was. So he was coming on the internet and approaching the Zensar virtual campus. And he came and asked a lot of very interesting questions. So we had an HR person actually interacting with him on the internet. And she said, look, if you're so interested in these new technologies, why don't you come work for us? And they asked him, okay, where do you live? He said, right now I'm in Second Life, but actually I live in Pune. He said, we also live in Pune. Lo and behold, next day he came to Pune, visited us physically, obviously without the wolf garb, and we recruited the guy. So this is one of the early success stories of interacting with somebody in a virtual world and making success happen in the real world. So I think that's what happened. A day will come when each one of us has our big screen at home or office on all the time. So we are maybe playing games, we're interacting on metaverse, at the same time having a conversation, saying, excuse me, going to virtual life. So it's almost like going to be a fungible existence between real and virtual. Now, what does that do for kids who anyway have very poor social skills nowadays? What does it do for people who want to interact, as you said earlier on the HR example? It's something we have to think about. So I'm not commenting on the social aspects of excessive computer time, but I'm just saying technology will enable it. It's up to you how judiciously you choose to use it.
I think so. Absolutely right. And there is one more, I think, question: whether digital currency will help India, crypto.
Crypto won't. The crash of crypto and NFTs to a certain extent just shows you that. It's like overdone here. I remember this is like 6 years ago. Somebody sent me a request from US saying that, look, can we take a 20% stake in your company? Not 5FL, one of our subsidiary companies. And I was going to the US anyway, so I said, I'll meet you. And this was actually in Hollywood. So I remember in one of the very, very fancy Hollywood restaurants, we had dinner. At the end of it, we agreed on a valuation, etc. And I was saying, "Oh, this is great." And he told me, "But we'll invest in crypto." He says, "We're a crypto investor group." And that time, crypto was even less known. So I said, "No, no, I'm not interested." He said, "No, no, at the end of 5 years, you can cash out if you want and all." But I kind of lost interest. And 2 years back, crypto was so hyped, you thought everything will go out. But I think all regulators are smart. I mean, RBI has come up with the CBDC and the digital currency, digital rupiah, etc. So I think there'll be a more moderated method of looking at digital. But digital currency is here to stay. I mean, there's no reason why we have to keep carrying 100 rupee and 500 rupee notes in our pocket all the time. I mean, potentially, credit cards will also go out. I remember 2 months back, I went to Bombay airport at 6 in the morning and I went to the coffee shop and said, "Bhaiya, ek chai dena." So he said, and I gave him my credit card. He said, "My credit card leta hi nahi hu." Then I said, "Okay, fine, take cash, but I only have 500 rupee note. Do you have change?" He said, "My cash bhi nahi leta hu. Google karo na sab." So, I mean, this guy telling me GPay karo. Now, today, anywhere on my golf course at 7 o'clock, the guy will say, "Please GPay." So, and it is unheard of in America. I mean, this kind of level of usage of technology. So, I'm saying this is what we are moving towards. And hopefully, that is the way we will kind of define the world as we go.
Interestingly, I think I met one startup yesterday in the dinner, a lady, and she says she has got a chip in a ring you can carry. And then suppose you forget your mobile phone or your this thing, you can pay through the ring. So I was asking her, I have rings or necklace, wearables. So there's a new fintech company coming up. So very interesting because she said, okay, sometimes you may forget your mobile. What do you do? Google Pay. So we can do it through the ring. I was asking her, okay, I have a ring, and of course most of this thing. Can we do it? She said, no, it's possible only for another kind of metal ring. So I think people are thinking of innovative ways of payment. Now, since we have a 2 minutes time, since we are speaking specifically to Maharashtra members, now I think we have majority of members are from MSMEs. And of course, what's your message if MSMEs? I think all of us, even Anderson also, I think when he started in 1953, we were in SME, in a small. And since our founders invested in the technology, I think from 1970s, and today nothing is untraceable in our product or company, and we do a lot of simulation. We are at a different level. Now, what do you say message for the MSMEs in specific? I don't know.
As I said, my message for the MSMEs, don't get carried away by hype. Use, as I said, commonly available technology uncommonly well. So make sure that you choose what is appropriate for you. There's no need to be going with the fad, with the latest, etc. I'm actually helping a couple of SMEs, one in Bombay and one in Pune, just to think through digital, saying, what should we do to make ourselves more successful? So I think there are enough methods, and keep my mantra in mind that, look at technology, look at process, look at data and analytics, look at journeys for your customers and culture. And if you make a mix and say, okay, here's my budget, here's how I want to play out, you can proceed step by step and not worry about it. So don't overinvest in anything if you're not ready for it, because culture itself may not be ready. So we have to kind of adapt as we go. No, it's been a pleasure, Sriram, talking to all of you. And feel free to share my email ID with anybody. I'm always available on email. So you can just send me a mail. I'm happy to reach out to any one of you.
Roshan, you can put his email on the chat. So first of all, I think formal, there is a lot of comments. I think one gentleman said it's a fantastic thing. Well, he of course also has appreciated me also. You have moderated it fine. So I could manage to have a person who gets bored in 7 minutes to speak for almost for 1 hour. And I wanted to actually, we dealt with a lot of things. I think a lot of takeaways. This session is recorded, and I think the YouTube link will be available. And for people who have missed out some of the talks, you can always listen to them. And basically, they say thank you. This is a thanks from our members. So from my side, Ganesh, thanks for your offer to speak on this topic. And I didn't have to make much effort to talk to Ganesh to spend this time. So thank you so much, Dr. Ganesh Natarajan, on behalf of CII members. And I'm confident that there will be a lot of takeaways. And I had a lot of good learning from my personal perspective. And this is a way to go forward. And thanks to all the members for taking your time out, and wish you all a wonderful and happy, I would say, weekend. And of course, New Year is coming. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all the members. Thank you, Natarajan.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sriram.
Thank
That was
you.
a wonderful
Thank you.
session.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.